Jeremy Saland served for more than 7 years as assistant district attorney in Manhattan DA's office, and he joins me now. Jeremy, it's good to have you on. And obviously, we don't know what happened. It could be nothing. Someone got, sick or something. What is your read on the delay here? And just from your knowledge of process here, what would it mean in terms of tomorrow and where they are in the timeline?
Well, first of all, I think we're all starting on a false premise that was set forth by the former president, that this is some frenzied arrest that's coming on Tuesday and that this process is moving at light speed. And that's simply not the case. Obviously, it's a secret proceeding, but there's always things that come up that you and I may not hear about because it's in a grand jury. So nothing that stops us or slows it down is really atypical. It could be a witness, it could be a sickness, it could be just conversation about the law. So there's many reasons we could speculate, but there's nothing that I have heard from or seen that is out of the ordinary.
So given that, and I that's generally my inclination, or at least a sort of operating assumption here, right? That this is going along some internal process that is not revealed to all of us. Just tell me a little bit about the sort of rebuttal witness or the nature of that Costello's brought in by the grand jury to kind of, give a chance to sort of vet Cohn or to say, look, this guy is not credible, and there might be a rebuttal witness to him. How common is that sort of thing in these proceedings?
Well, so the grand jury always has the opportunity to call a witness. So we'll just take Mr. Costello for a second, and he comes in and the grand jury decides that, yes, Mr. President, you can have your witness be heard. Ultimately, the district attorney's office also has a similar right, and the grand jury can decide as well to say, well, now that this evidence has been presented, let me present something else. Let me corroborate what maybe has been already shared with you. Let me bring in a new witness, and we don't know if that is a new witness. We don't know if that's Michael Cohen. But there's some assertions, no doubt, that the defense witness made that the prosecution now wants to controvert and challenge. But it could be a wide range of things. It could be something that's documentary, or it could be someone who's actually testifying, like Michael Cohen again.
So generally, after the final witness, let's say there is a final witness and the case is sort of done, right? Mm-hmm. What then happens?
So once the case is done and no more witnesses are called and the grand jury is ready to move forward, what's going to happen is the district attorney or the prosecutor who's doing or handling the grand jury is going to instruct them on the law. This is not a summation like you would find at a trial jury. It's instructing them on the law, and those grand jurors, remember, this has been going on not for days, not for weeks, but for months. Those grand jurors that were there for the critical and essential evidence will have the opportunity to then hear or ask further questions and then close out the case and vote, not beyond a reasonable doubt, but they'll make the determination that there's reasonable cause to believe or not that a felony has been committed. If they do so, they will vote a true bill. That vote of the 23 that are there, or the 23 that should be there, and 16 makes a quorum, needs to be passed by at least 12 of those grand jurors.
And then the true bill, then what happens after that?
So it's more internal and administrative. What ultimately happens is a grand jury warden would take that to a clerk or to the court. It's still sealed. It doesn't become unsealed merely because the grand jury has now voted and passed it, and it's brought to a judge. In the case where someone like here, it's called an NA, non-arrest or no arrest indictment. In situations like that, also a warrant could come shortly thereafter for the person so that they are returned to court.
Yeah, and presumably, again, should all this happen, and we've seen reporting on this, and I think obviously common sense would suggest that there's pretty complex and high-level negotiations happening between the DA's office, the NYPD, the Secret Service, the lawyers for the former president, because this is obviously a special set of circumstances.
Absolutely, and I hesitate to use the word choreographed, but there is no doubt there is a lot of communication. And that would really take place for anybody if there's an NA indictment and the other party, meaning the defense, is knowledgeable that this is happening. There's no doubt that there is arrangements being made for a surrender, there's arrangements being made for time and place. This needs to be done very tightly and neatly because there's not only danger to the former president, but even the public as well. So they want to make sure it's done right. But there's a lot of conversation. The defense may not know that the indictment is happening if it does happen on a particular day, but once that is filed and ready to go, there's no doubt that conversation continues or starts.
There's been a lot of talk from Republicans, national Republicans particularly, Donald Trump and others, saying that this is a quote-unquote Soros prosecutor. This is politically motivated. Trump saying that he's a rogue prosecutor. He's having a hard time with the grand jury, especially after the powerful testimony against him by Felon Cohn's highly respected former lawyer, which, again, that's just like, all whatever. But I guess what is your read, having worked in that office? I know you didn't work for Alvin Bragg, but just this sort of like onslaught of calumny being heaped upon the current district attorney for Manhattan, Alvin Bragg.
Well, I'm confident that this is a question that's being dealt with internally well before this move forward. And there's a presumption that this grand jury investigation sort of started again. But it was an ongoing investigation. It didn't just start and come out of nowhere. And of course, there's going to be the use of the political sword to try to slay this dragon. But that's not necessarily a fair conclusion at all. Ultimately, whether it goes to a jury if he is indicted, the people, meaning all of us, are going to listen to that evidence and make the determination on our own. Is this politically motivated? To argue that it's politically motivated because of the parties, we could turn this around and say if there's a indictment or an investigation coming out of North Carolina or DeSantis's backyard against a Democrat, therefore it has to be something that's politically motivated. Yeah. That's not fair. But you better believe any chief law enforcement officer needs to take that stench away to make sure that it's very clear that this is above board and an honest and truthful, just investigation.
All right, Jeremy Saland, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us tonight. I appreciate it.